Welcome to the deep dive. If you're an InfoSec professional, you know the feeling. The flow of information isn't a trickle, it's a flood.
It really is. You're constantly getting hit with new regulations, new threat intel, and this list of responsibilities that just seems to get longer every single quarter.
Exactly. And our source material for this deep dive, it's not just a list of best practices. It feels more like a complete blueprint for modern cybersecurity leadership.
It is. It's a roadmap, really.
Yeah.
It details all the critical domains you have to master,
Yeah.
from the super technical stuff all the way up to boardroom strategy.
A staggering scope for sure. So our mission here is pretty clear. We're going to try and distill this massive blueprint into clear, digestible domains. We want you to walk away with a real sense of these responsibilities.
I think the only place to start is with the foundation, right? The operational basics.
Right. Let's start with identify and protect.
Okay, so let's just unpack the sheer volume of work in that identify phase. Specifically, vulnerability management. The sources make it so clear that it's way beyond just running patches for servers and laptops now.
Oh, far beyond. The scope, it now officially includes your network devices, databases, physical security, and then the really critical stuff, the modern attack surfaces.
Yeah.
We're talking about mandatory cloud misconfiguration testing, mobile devices, apps, containers, IoT endpoints, and even, the really tough stuff like OT and SCADA environments.
It's an asset inventory problem on a scale that feels almost impossible.
Right.
And because of that scale, the sources really stress that you can't just work harder. It's futile. The mandate now is to work smarter. You just cannot patch everything.
So the focus has to be on what? Prioritization.
Exactly. Classification and prioritization using a truly risk-based approach.
And that's where the technical nuance comes in, isn't it? The documents, they specifically call out using intelligence like the exploit prediction scoring system or EPSS. For anyone less familiar, this is a huge paradigm shift away from traditional CVSS scoring.
It absolutely is. CVSS tells you how severe a bug is, which is useful. But EPSS, it tries to predict the likelihood that a vulnerability will actually be exploited in the wild.
In the next 30 days, right.
In the next 30 days. So that shift means instead of you chasing every single critical CVE, you focus your resources on the ones that actually pose a real immediate threat to you. It's intelligence-driven mitigation.
Okay, so once you've prioritized those risks, the requirements seem to lead right into application security. We've been talking about shifting left for a decade, but this is concrete.
It is. The sources mandate that the security team has to integrate mandatory secure code training and review. And crucially, they have to enforce integration into the entire software development lifecycle.
Not just at the end.
No, from the very beginning. From requirements gathering onwards, it has to be baked in.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, it's pretty obvious why. The software supply chain crisis.
That's the one. The blueprint requires leaders to formally inventory open source components, every single library, every dependency, and actively manage that source code supply chain security.
That requirement alone could completely change how you do procurement, how fast you can develop.
It does, and that focus on what's in your software bleeds right into how we manage access. Identity has, it's fundamentally become the new perimeter.
Right.
Traditional SSO and MFA, they aren't differentiators anymore. They're just a ticket to the game.
And the advanced authentication methods listed they feel a little futuristic, honestly. We're seeing mandates for voice signatures, face recognition, and this huge push toward passkey adoption to finally get rid of passwords.
And IAM isn't just for your employees anymore. That's a key takeaway here. The sources require you to manage IoT device identities and, critically, customer identity for e-commerce, for mobile apps.
And the final step.
The final non-negotiable step is that all of it, this entire identity infrastructure, has to be fully integrated with zero-trust technologies. It's a whole ecosystem for people, customers, and devices.
That is a robust foundation for prevention. But, even the best prevention fails sometimes.
Always.
Which brings us to the reality of detection, the detect phase. And this demands so much more than just passively watching logs.
Absolutely. The key requirements here are things like advanced log analysis and correlation. So you're probably looking at a SOM or XDR solution. You need dedicated NetFlow analysis and, I think most importantly, proactive programs like threat hunting and insider threat detection.
So you're expected to be actively looking for threats, not just waiting for an alert to pop.
Exactly. And the Security Operations Center, the SOC, needs constant attention. The sources are clear. This isn't a static thing. We're seeing mandates for SOC staff, continuous training, and very specific requirements like running regular SOC disaster recovery exercises.
What happens if the SOC itself goes down?
What do you do? Yeah. The sources also mention that you need active partnerships with ISACs, the Information Sharing and Analysis Centers, for that real-time threat intelligence.
Yeah.
Because your detection is only as good as your data. You have to constantly integrate new data sources, including that messy, unstructured data coming from all your IoT devices.
That kind of high-fidelity detection must require some really specialized, expensive skills, right? Beyond just standard SOC work, what skills are they mandating?
We're talking about highly technical capabilities, yeah. Things that require a deep understanding of how attackers work. So running frequent red team, blue team exercises, using sophisticated deception technologies for breach detection.
So honeypots and things like that.
Exactly. Systems designed purely to bait and detect attackers early. And of course, the need to develop and retrain ML models specifically for log anomaly detection.
You know, when you lay out the necessity for red teaming and continuous pen testing, it just underscores a critical truth. Your defense is only as strong as its ability to withstand a real offense.
Right, you have to validate everything we just discussed.
That constant, rigorous testing and validation is what separates a mature program from a reactive one. Proactive strategies demand that blend of offense and defense.
You have to confirm your controls actually work under real-world pressure.
And this indispensable need for testing is why we want to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor. You need trusted partners to run those pen tests and red team engagements that validate your defense. We really encourage you to explore the offensive services offered over at www.cisomarketplace.services as they directly complement these defensive duties.
Okay, so let's move on to respond and recover. That validation from testing is so crucial for making sure your incident response actually works. What are the key preparation steps there?
Well, the first one is maintaining truly adequate logging and logging that you know will survive a breach. Then performing regular IR playbook testing, and maybe most importantly, the high-level data breach preparation.
Which is not a technical problem.
Not at all.
Yeah.
This means setting clear leadership expectations for what happens during an incident and knowing how to manage media relations. What you say when you say it.
And, no surprise, ransomware gets its own dedicated strategy in the source material. It's still the #1 threat.
And it goes way beyond just technology fixes.
It absolutely does.
Sure.
The strategy is all about comprehensive preparation. So, performing a formal ransomware business impact analysis, a BIA, to understand what's critical.
Knowing what to save first.
Exactly. Ensuring you have adequate offline backups, which the sources stress have to be segregated and tested. And using preventative defenses like continuous machine integrity checking to spot tampering early. It's an entire resilience program for one threat.
You know, we spent a lot of time in the weeds, in the operational basement, focusing on the tech. But none of that matters if it isn't championed and funded at the top.
Right. It's time to shift out of the SOC bunker and talk about the CISO's strategic blueprint, governance and risk.
The governance requirements are extensive. They really define how a CISO interacts with the business. First up is strategy and business alignment. Your security efforts have to clearly support the company's mission.
And second, defining clear roles and responsibilities, usually with RACI charts, is mandatory for accountability.
And the reporting. The reporting requirements are crushing. The sources demand visibility across multiple frameworks at the same time. You have to report against NIST, ISO 27601, CMMC.
And probably half a dozen others, depending on your industry. It's a constant audit cycle. And this is why the blueprint includes requirements that have nothing to do with firewalls. This is where it gets really interesting.
The soft skills.
The soft side of security leadership, yeah. The sources call out things like strong conflict management, carefully managing corporate politics, and even the importance of security team branding and mastering negotiation, give and take.
You're so right. The technical skills might get you the interview, but the soft skills are what get you the budget and the success. If you can't negotiate, your whole program just stalls.
And this feeds right into risk management maturity. It's not enough anymore to list risks in a spreadsheet and call them high, medium, low.
Yeah.
We're talking about sophisticated approaches like automating third-party risk management, or TPRM, and the really vital step of cyber risk quantification, CRQ.
Okay, CRQ feels like the game changer here. Moving away from subjective scores to putting an actual dollar value on a potential loss, why is that step so critical in these sources?
Because it forces security to speak the same language as the rest of the business. When you can tell the board the lack of patching here represents an 80% chance of a $5 million loss event in the next 2 years, that's a completely different conversation.
Than just saying, we have 500 criticals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
CRQ links your spending directly to financial outcomes, and your centralized risk register becomes an executive financial tool.
And meanwhile, the attack surface isn't just expanding, it's moving aggressively to multi-cloud and SaaS. So the responsibilities there include mastering cloud security posture management, or CSPM, defining strict SaaS policy and guidelines to deal with shadow IT, and an unexpected one, evaluating a vendor's financial strength.
That financial check is pure business risk management. If your critical SaaS provider goes under, their security controls are suddenly irrelevant. This complexity also demands architectural changes. The shift away from the old perimeter is, well, it's done.
The mandate is to implement a zero-trust models and roadmap and adopt a comprehensive SaaS strategy. This secure access service edge architecture, it just centralizes security in the cloud, closer to the user.
And all this complexity, TPRM, multi-cloud, modern architecture, it all requires tool consolidation and smart vendor management. Leaders need trusted, centralized resources to manage this ecosystem.
Which brings us right back to the core challenge of tool sprawl. We need systems to help rationalize the budget and manage vendors efficiently. We want to thank our primary sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.com, which is that essential, centralized resource for InfoSec solutions. They really connect back to this need for tool rationalization and vendor evaluation.
So as we transition to our final segment, let's talk about the future. And the most critical emerging domain is obviously AI and generative AI. The sources treat this not as some future concern, but as a foundational risk that needs to be addressed now.
Absolutely. The responsibilities around GenAI are immediate. This includes creating robust AI governance frameworks, proactively protecting intellectual property from leaking into these models, and managing the risks of adversarial attacks that could poison your training data.
And of course, mitigating everything in the OWASP top 10 for LLMs and GenAI.
Right. But while AI is a massive risk, it's also a mandatory tool for the defense.
Oh, for sure. The blueprint requires leveraging GenAI for internal task automation and integrating AI-enabled security tools just to keep pace with the adversary.
And that theme of automation is everywhere in the blueprint, not just AI. Leaders are mandated to automate patching, implement secure DevOps by embedding tools in CI/CD pipelines.
Automate threat hunting, automate risk scoring, automate compliance checks. It's really the only way to scale.
And that automation demands an evolution in team skills. The blueprint requires teams to develop deep machine learning skill development, including understanding things like algorithm biases that could affect your detection.
Alongside deeper expertise in very specialized domains like IoT, ICS, and medical devices.
So finally, we arrive at the strategic oversight of the team and the budget, the business of security. The sources call out key duties like proactive staff burnout prevention in this 2047 world,
Which is huge.
managing the tricky balance between CapEx and OpEx for hardware versus cloud, and the crucial, often overlooked requirement to regularly retire redundant and underutilized tools.
That tool retirement requirement has a direct impact on the budget and the complexity we just talked about. Ultimately, the role requires a comprehensive roadmap plan for 1-3 years and the ability to communicate all of this effectively to the board. It's a 360-degree job.
So, to summarize this immense blueprint, the modern InfoSec leader has to have unparalleled technical depth in AppSec cloud SOC operations, but also combine that with high-level strategic governance, financial risk management through CRQ, and politically savvy board oversight.
It's the ultimate balancing act. Bits, budgets, and boardrooms. It really is.
A huge thank you again to our sponsors, www.cisomarketplace.com and www.cisomarketplace.services, for supporting this deep dive.
Now, for you to think about, given the speed of automation and AI adoption in both defense and offense, and the sources focus on these emerging risks, here's the question.
Which specific responsibility on this entire blueprint? Maybe implementing cyber risk quantification, maybe managing data costs, or maybe protecting your IP from GenAI. Which one will become the single biggest driver of an InfoSec budget in the next 2 years, and why?
That's the question for you to mull over as you connect the dots between operations and strategy.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.